Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. And it's good to be here. It's good to be sober. I want to thank Michael for being so kind and courteous to me. I got a big packet of stuff in the mail. It had like all this stuff in it. I was like, oh my God, all these maps. And it's really nice to be treated like this. You know, when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, no one was inviting me anywhere and asking me to do anything for them. Actually, they were really wanting me to go away. And it is an honor and a privilege to be able to speak in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to welcome Marco to Alcoholics Anonymous and let him know that the program works. I want to thank my my first sponsor, Emmett, for coming with me. He's an excellent example of Alcoholics Anonymous and an excellent example of a gentleman. I mean, when I came into AA and I was about 90 days sober, straight out of the mental institution, and Emmett came up to me and asked me if I wanted to go to meetings. And I don't know if you come from where I come from, but I come from living on the streets. And when a guy or a man or whoever, someone that looks like they may have more money than you have, asks you if you want to go somewhere, you know, I had other ideas of what he wanted. And I'll never forget this. We went to eat. When's the last time I'd been to a restaurant, you know, where you sat down and people waited on you? You know, I was more like the Wiener Schnitzel variety, the 25-cent hot dog deal. And I remember sitting across from the table and looking at him, just thinking, when's he going to make his move? You know, when's he going to say something smart to me? And I'm out of here, you know. Here I am on welfare, you know, with my little welfare money in my pocket, and made sure I have enough money and to be able to get on a bus. You know, if you live like I lived, you know what I'm talking about. You always have to have that out. You know, I got another plan, a plan B, so that I could get out of here. And we ate, and he said he'd pay for it, and I insisted on paying my half. And he didn't argue with me. He let me pay my half, and I'll forever be grateful for the men in Alcoholics Anonymous that don't take advantage of the new women. If he had said something to me, if he had insinuated so many times like I've heard before, you know what I mean, honey, I don't think I'd be standing here today. And what Emmett has done for me is, you know, he has showed me what Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. I mean, I was new. He just, you know, he took me to meetings every day, and he took me on my first 12-step call when I was 30 days sober. I kept thinking, I'm 30 days sober. He said, so what? You know, he carries big books in his trunk, and he is always putting his hand out to the newcomer, and he's a gift in my life, absolutely. And I want to thank him for, you know, I asked him, he says yes. You know, I used to come. He was a speaker. I would just sit there and just, I'm coming with him, and I'm sitting in the seat. And, you know, when I go and speak and people ask me, you know, he always graciously comes with me, and I appreciate that. You know, I got sober in 1993. I'm 6.5 years sober, and I'm going to stick to the format, you know, what I used to be like, what happened to me and what I'm like today. I was born in Los Angeles on 51st and Hoover. At Hoover Hospital. If you look there now, you know, it's so funny. I don't know what's there now, but there used to be a hospital there in 1965, you know. And my mom had me out of wedlock. I'm illegitimate. You know, I don't like the sound of that word because it made it sound like there's something, like I had something to do with it, and I know I didn't. And my dad was in the military, and he was supposed to marry her, and he didn't, and, you know, it was just like a long line of stories. You know, my family's a family that communicates through osmosis. You know, they tell somebody and somebody else tells you, and when they want to get to you, comes around the circle like that telephone game you play in school, and then you get some cryptic story at the end. And from what I understood from years of hearing the story about my no-good, low-down dad is that he didn't want to pay child support, and he didn't want to marry my mom, and he didn't want me. And my mom found a man. I don't know how they met. Actually, I heard that they met through my dad, but I don't know, you know how these stories go. And she fell in love with this man, and she married him, and he adopted me. And I was like very young. Maybe 4 or maybe even younger than that. They said I went to court. I don't remember any of it. But he adopted me where his name is on the birth certificate. And my dad had to sign off and say that he was giving up all parental rights. And that's my life, you know, where my dad's in the military. and we have a family. They had another child. They had my sister, and so far things are fine. My parents are from Arkansas, both of them, actually all three of them. My biological dad and the dad that adopted me and my mom, and don't really blame me for that. It's not my fault. My dad is from Fordyce, Arkansas, and my mom is from Eudora, Arkansas. If you know these places, you know what? I'm very surprised. Eudora is like a storefront kind of small town. Maybe the downtown's as big as this wall, right? I mean, it's like really small. It's like a dime store, like a Piggly Wiggly market, or or a Mad Butcher market. Names like that. If you're from the South, you can they make up crazy names for grocery stores. And we would go down there in the summer. My mom would send us to see my grandma, and we'd spend 3 months down there with her, and they had a farm, and it was a nice time. They had cows and chickens and ducks and stuff like that, and we would go up to town once a week to the dime store and spend our little money. And I would be pushed toward this gentleman that was, none of the other kids were pushed toward him, and I was told I had to go over and talk to him, and he kind of pat me on the head and pinch my cheek and give me $1 or something, and just one day I just asked my grandma, why do I got to go talk to him, and then the other kids got to go talk to him, and she said, because he's your grandfather. And I'm sure my mom didn't mean for me to find out this way, since they hadn't told me at all. And I'm sure my grandma didn't mean to harm me in any way. And being, the ego cat that I am, I just thought, I started counting grandparents. Like, I got 3 grandmothers, 3 grandfathers, and I started bragging about it, like, to everybody. And my mom heard about it, and from the neighbor called her, and she had to come in and tell me that the man I had known as my father wasn't my father at all. And I was crushed. I mean, I could not get next to it. And I was, 7 or 8 years old, and immediately looked at him differently, immediately looked at her differently. They had a child, and I could figure, well, he loves her, they got married, they love each other, they had a child, where do I fit in? And I couldn't see that I fit in anywhere in the picture. And I'm sure they didn't treat me any different. I'm sure I wasn't abused or neglected in any way. But in my mind, you know what? I had a short stick. And I was afraid they were going to get rid of me. They were going to toss me out. They didn't want me around. And I live my life based on a fear foundation. I tread sticks with my dad, and I didn't have a relationship really with him until I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. He was the guy that would get rid of me. And my mom was on his side, and my sister was the spoiled brat. And I separated myself emotionally from those people. I read a lot, and the neediness inside of me that I want to please them so much, but I couldn't possibly let them know how much I really needed them in my life. And I don't know any kid that could rationalize all of that and just come up and say it. I'd probably think they were possessed if they did, but I just separated myself from them, and I was afraid in my own home that they would get rid of me, and I didn't want to ask for too much, and I separated through books and through school, and I tried really hard to fix the outside of me, and that's who I am. I'm a person that fixes the outside of me, and I want it to look a certain way because I'm addicted to what you think about me. It's very important that you see me as a certain light. Although I'm an empty shell inside, forget about that. As long as you see me in a certain light, it's fine with me, and it's traveled way into my sobriety and choked me. I want you to see me in a certain light, and that's what happened in my house. We lived in Camp Pendleton. If you don't know where that is, it's by Oceanside, going towards San Diego way. It's a big military installation. And already, as a little kid, I'm asking, why do we live where the poor people live? My dad was enlisted. They had officers' quarters, kind of like civilian quarters. You make a lot of money, you get a big house. You make a little money, you get a little house, And I wanted to know why we had to live in the poor people's neighborhood. And I remember asking my parents that. My dad became an officer, and we moved to officers' quarters, and nice house. I grew up well. I'd say probably about middle class. And on these bases, there weren't a lot of black officers, and if there were, I don't know where they were. They weren't around our house. And there weren't a lot of black kids around me. And I always say I don't like to say the word token or something like that, but you know what? How about you're the only one, okay? There's none but you, okay? And that's kind of how I grew up, being the only black kid in my neighborhood. There weren't any black families, and that's not a problem unless the people that are around you want you to speak for the whole entire black race, and then it could be a problem, you know. And I didn't think I was qualified to speak for the black race, but they asked me questions anyway. You know, the other kids are just curious. Kids are just curious. I'm a teacher today. Kids are just curious. They just want to know, you know. So they would ask me questions like, you know, can I can I touch your hair? You know, and then they would ask me like, do you like Michael Jackson? And then they would ask me, which I think is the worst of them all, do you watch Soul Train? And you know what, if I'm supposed to like these things, I completely hate them all. You know, I want to fit in, but I don't want to be separate from the group. And I told them, of course, you know, you cannot touch my hair, and I don't like Michael Jackson, and in real life, I really don't watch Soul Train. And, you know, that's kind of how it went for me. We lived overseas for 3 years in DOD schools over there. We lived in Okinawa, Japan for a year, in the Philippine Islands, Subic Bay for 2 years. And once again, you know, I'm not the only black kid, but now I'm a foreigner. You know, I can always separate myself from you. You know, I'm different. You know, I'm different from everybody. Now I'm a foreigner in a different country, and Marcos was in power, and there's martial law, and there's like all these things going on, and you know, it's just like I'm living over there, and I picked up my first obsession. And you know, when you're on a fear foundation like I am, and you're trying to fix the outside of yourself so you could just get unconditional love, you know, you grasp at straws. And I picked up, you know, I went to one of these places where they show you this, you know, movie. You know, I don't want to offend anybody, but there's a movie they show you, and let's just say it's like a get saved movie. You watch it, and you're supposed to get saved afterwards. And a kid like me that's afraid, in the movie, if you didn't get saved, you died. I mean, it was very obvious. Those people that didn't listen to the message, that didn't get saved, died this horrible death, and I was freaked out afterwards. And they said, who wants to be saved? And I was like, save me, you know, save me first. You know, like, I can almost push people down. I should be the one. And, you know, of course, they go through this deal. They give you a little Bible, you know, and I was off and around. I was like a missionary in 5th grade, and I was like saving people. And I was going to school, like saving all my friends. Like I would just pick them off one by one. And like everything else I do, I go off in a blaze of glory, and boom, you know, it's over. You know, after a while, I threw my Bible down, my little highlighter, and I was over with that. You know, and we lived in Okinawa, and it was okay over there until I figured out it was an island and I couldn't get off. You know, I got kind of scared then, but you know, then we came back to the States, and I don't know if you remember middle school. I teach middle school today, God bless them. It's a weird period, time in your life. You're not quite grown, you're not quite a kid, your hormones are raging, your body looks funny, you're gangly and weird looking, and you know, and so much your peers are important. A person like me, that my outside job is really important. I'm on a fear foundation. I was petrified. I went to this school where there were a lot of black kids. I just thought, oh my God, you know, I looked for the most popular person, a person I would want to be with. Her name was Beverly. I think her boyfriend's name was Tyrone. That's what I remember. I wanted to be with them. Living overseas is like living in a vacuum. I came back, it's like I don't know the styles, I don't know anything. And my relatives, God bless their soul, gave me clothes that I thought were cool. I mean, how was I to know they were uncool? And so I put them on one day to go impress Beverly this day. I had my intentions set. And I put on a tie-dye jacket and tie-dye pants. Tie-dye was not in at the time. And I wore it like I was wearing like the most popular thing at the time. I just really was sporting it. And I got to school, and I made it through first, second period. I don't remember when home ec was, but and finally in home ec, Beverly kind of looks over at me and goes, what happened to you? You look like you've been attacked by a Clorox bottle. And you know, I'm a social midget. You know, I cannot fit in with other people. I don't know what to say. And I hear people in Alcoholics Anonymous saying it all the time. I'm thinking. I really want to fit in, but I don't know how to get along with others. I really don't. It says in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, or the 12 and 12-1, how we have trouble having bonding relationships with people. Well, you know what? I moved around all the time. I didn't want any bonding relationships with people because I knew I was going to move. I didn't have a best friend until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I started doing was I started looking at her and seeing what she was doing, and then I tried to emulate that. And finally one day she asked me, do you want to eat lunch with us? And like a big deal in middle school because they travel in packs, you know. It's not just one or two, it's a group of them. And I finally got to eat lunch with her, and then we moved. And that's my story. Every time I got a little footing, every time I got a little bearing, every time I built a little person on the outside, we moved. We moved probably about every 3 years. Now, we moved to a place that I was comfortable at. I think I was comfortable in retrospect there because we stayed there a while. But it seems like I wouldn't be. We moved to Fallbrook, California. I don't know if you know where that is, but that's on the other side, like Vista, Temecula in the middle. And at that time, Tom Metzger lived there, and he was a Grand Dragon for the Ku Klux Klan. So that's where I felt comfortable in Fallbrook, California. I went to junior high there, and I do what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. I just kind of like fixed the outsides and got very active in school. There weren't a lot of black kids there either, but I graduated from junior high, went to high school. I was freshman class president, and I really had arrived by that time because I knew it wasn't on my outside job. It wasn't because all the black kids voted me in, because there was like 500 kids in my class and maybe 10 black kids in the whole school, and I felt now I'm a person, and I did well there. I did, pep club, band, basketball, field hockey. I just did all the stuff to keep me busy and to make me look like I had it going on. I'm very insecure and, emotionally needy person, but I kept all that stuff going, and I was freshman class president. Not freshman, I was freshman, and then sophomore I lost, and then junior I won, and everybody wanted to be that, and I really did excel at that time. Like I really had made the spot I wanted to be in. I came home one day and my dad says, we're moving. And not only did he say we're moving, he said we're moving to Fordyce, Arkansas. And that's how I felt about it too. I mean, I was just like, oh no, I had built this person, I'm gonna be somebody, and now I'm going to Arkansas, and and it won't probably take a lot for you to put together. That's where I drank. I went from a school where there were like 1,000 kids to a school where there were like 500 kids in the whole school. I went to a town where there were like 5,000 people in the whole town and 3 liquor stores. My dad moved there to open up one of them, so that's 4 liquor stores for like 5,000 people. These people drank. I'm in the middle of I'm southern Arkansas, and here I come with my Ocean Pacific on and my boat shoes, and these people didn't know what OP was, and they were, I was not doing good there, They had the black kids stand on one side, the white kids stand on the other side, and they didn't say it was the rule, but they naturally separated themselves. And here I was, I had traveled, I grew up middle class. I'd been in the military, and I was the gray kid. Where'd I fit in with these people? They called me a Yankee. They said I talk funny, and I didn't fit in with them, and it was really, really, really hard. And an example is that I would go to class, and about 15 guys would stand about 10 feet from me and watch me. And just kind of watch me get my stuff out of the locker, kind of watch me walk to class and hover behind me. If I could have jumped out of my skin, I could. And I know that you're probably thinking right now that a drink would help, and that's exactly what happened for me. I told you I'm on a fear foundation. I'm afraid of every single solitary thing. I didn't know that until I got to AA, but I can tell you this, I was sitting inside my house, and they said the other side of the tracks, they literally meant the other side of the tracks. And we lived in town, so they were calling us rich black people, and my dad was opening this liquor store, and I wasn't doing well. I was driving a car, and a lot of the black kids weren't, and I was very unhappy. And you know what? For me, the people that came and knocked on my door and said, do you want to come with us? It was not a big choice for me because I wasn't coming out of the house. Those kids just happened to be some of the white kids of the town. It happened to be some of the people that drank alcohol. They came and knocked on my door. They said, do you want to come out? And I went with them, and we drank. And you know what? Alcohol did for me what it talks about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was the ease and comfort of alcohol. The longer I'm sober, the more I realize how much I love to drink. I absolutely love to drink. Alcohol did so much for me. When I was newly sober, I never even realized how many holes it filled up in me. It was just necessary for me to live life. It's necessary for me to interact with others. It's necessary for me to have self-esteem, to talk, to walk, to live a life, to have aspirations. Alcohol was my buddy, was my pal. And my dad opened that liquor store, which was convenient for me. And I tried as much of that stuff inside that liquor store as I could. Now, drinking and driving go hand in hand in Arkansas. I don't know in any other state that it does, but I'm telling you, you have to drink and drive. It's part of the deal because you got to go places, and there's nowhere around there but trees and dirt roads and ditches, but you got to go there and you got to drink. So we drank in the cemeteries, no respect. We drank at the lakes, and then we drank and we drove, and we got people to, we went to the deer camps. And we just, have a road trip and really go nowhere. We just drive in a circle and drink. And that's what I did. And I had fun, and I loved it. And, I drank what they called in those towns the rednecks. And I got a reputation as the girl that was going to get lynched. And you know what? And I didn't care. I had a good time. I drank, and it was fun. And I built a life in Arkansas because of alcohol. Gave me the courage to build a life. I built a life. I became, I was in the homecoming court, and I was a thespian, and I did all this stuff. I started doing the same thing I had done in California, I'd done in Arkansas, and I built an outside life. And then when it was time to leave there, I took my show on the road. I came right back here. My parents wanted me to stay there. I couldn't stay under their watchful eye and do what I wanted to do. So I came back out here, and I went to school in Torrance. El Camino College, and and I started doing community theater there and going to school there, and nothing ever stopped. And I remember when I came back to California, I told myself, you know what, I'm not going to drink here. I'm not going to use here. I'm 18 years old thinking, I'm not going to do this. I went to the first party, and they tried to give me a joint, and I told them, I'm not going to do that. But it didn't take them long to twist my arm. And based on that decision, I started drinking when I first got here. I drove down 120th that night after that going to a cast party. I drove down Crenshaw on 120th. I saw this guy next to us in a car. We picked this guy up. I kept that guy for 11 years and had 3 kids. I don't date. I'm too fearful to date, and there went my life. I went to Cal State Long Beach. I worked at the Forum where they had back-to-back championships. Hopefully we'll have another championship this year. Yeah, we got some Laker fans here. And we drank, I'm telling you, the Forum was a great place. They encourage drinking. We get off from work, they give us a big tub of beer for $1. And it's just, alcohol wasn't doing anything to me that I could see. Here I was a young girl. I didn't pay any of my bills as a spoiled brat. My parents paid for my college. They paid for my car. They paid for my insurance. Whatever money I had, I kept in my pocket and drank off of, and I still had the nerve and gall to ask them for more. They paid for my room and board, and there I was, going to school, having the time of my life, and alcohol was working for me. I'm a blackout drinker. I can't remember how many blackouts I had. I guess I call them blackouts, huh? But when I was 18 years old, I went to this cast party, and I was up in PV, Palace Verdes, or Palace something, up there overlooking the ocean, and I was in the jacuzzi, and I drank a lot of wine. I don't know about you, I drink wine like Kool-Aid. I just drink down the first 3 glasses, have to be drank down like Kool-Aid, and then after that, maybe I'll sip a little. And there I was, throwing myself on some guy in the jacuzzi, and he turned me down. Sad to say, for me, I was probably a drunken slob, and I blacked out that night. I tried to drive, and when I came to the next morning, I hadn't been home. I'm 18 years old. This gives you kind of what my drinking was about at 18. And I woke up on someone's couch with this silk robe on. I had nothing underneath it, and I didn't know what had happened. I had not a clue. Where are my clothes? I don't wear robes. What's going on? And the girl whose house it was says she undressed me, which, I wasn't sane for that. I was like, I blacked out. And what I call that? I forgot. And I called that I forgot until I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was a blackout at 18. I got my way through school some kind of way, and I started drinking, and my husband, later became my husband, became my drinking buddy, and we drank and used all the way through my college until I was about to flunk out, and I became pregnant at the end. And here's a person that likes to keep the outside going. I had to call my folks and tell them I was pregnant. Here I was, my last semester of college. They had cut me off money-wise. I had to borrow some and just to finish up, and and alcoholism was starting to nip at my heels a little bit. I had to take a medical withdrawal, and I thought, I have the flu. I ended up having Robert Jr. is what it was, and and I was drinking and using. I would go to school and get paranoid and turn around and leave. I'd drive from LA to Long Beach, turn around and go all the way back, and I was flunking out of my classes, and I had to call and tell him, and my dad said, I hear you're in trouble, and you can come home if you like. And, I'm just nodding, and he says, I hear you're going to get married. Now, I'm a product of too much TV. Maybe my parents work too much. And on TV, when the girl gets married, when the girl gets pregnant, they get married. It's like an automatic thing. It's like the shotgun thing. I don't know. And my dad said, I don't want you to do that. And I was crushed. One more time, I had made a decision, and it wasn't good enough for them. I had handpicked this man myself. He was my pride and joy, and my parents didn't want me to marry him. And I have to say, for the women that are here, if anyone's new or not new, that when I was pregnant with my son, I drank alcohol. And this is how I drank when I was pregnant. I drank and threw up, and drank and threw up, and drank and threw up until I could keep the alcohol down. And since I've been sober, I've talked to people who were with me at that time and listened to them tell me what I was like and how hard it was for them. And they would hide because they didn't want to be around me because this is what I did to myself. I remember when the night I decided I could not take that drink anymore and that I was going to have this baby. I wasn't going to have an abortion. And I cried. I cried tears because I couldn't drink and I couldn't stand it. Because I don't know if you drink like me, but I'm a person that cannot stay stopped. I can't. Something gets inside of me, call it wild, call it whatever you want to call it, but I need alcohol more than I need to take care of the baby. I need alcohol more than I need to stay home with the husband. I need alcohol more than I need anything else because it gives me the security, it gives me, takes away my fear, and it's necessary for me to drink. I white-knuckled it. I stayed sober with that kid to the very end. He was born fine. He's a very smart, intelligent young man today. And I moved to Arkansas with this man and lived in a trailer. And I worked as a social worker, and I drove to work 2 hours and home 2 hours, and he stayed home and took care of the baby. Now, when I graduated from college, I had some ideas. Maybe International Playgirl, maybe 300ZX. Living in a trailer, taking care of a man was not one of them. And I had a big resentment. We had a budget for drinking. And my life in Arkansas was it was so completely hideous and it was filled with alcoholism. We had a budget for drinking, and I drank, and I don't even know how I was able to manage. And I worked as a social worker, child abuse and neglect, driving those hours to work, and this man not working, and I guess he's taking care of the baby. My parents begging me to send him back. My outside stuff's not working too good. I moved to DeWitt, Arkansas. If you're wondering what it looks like how it sounds, and I live in a trailer there, and I'm a social worker there for the surrounding areas, and I'm waking up every night with anxiety because I'm working with these kids that are being abused and neglected, and I can't take it because I take on all your emotions. I mean, it's not like I can't handle my own. I take on yours too, and I want to fix everything for everybody because I can't take emotional pain on any level, mine or yours. So I leave there. I go to Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm a social worker there. There's moms. I'm telling them don't drink, don't use, and I'm at work with my sweater on backwards. I'm taking the state car. I'm taking it. I'm going out for a spin. I'm not bringing it back. They want to call the cops on me. I'm telling you why. I'm bringing it back. I mean, what's the problem? And I start living alcoholism, start taking my life and start ripping me apart. I saw these people standing on the corner that looked really cool to me. They didn't go to work. They had on white shirts and baggy pants or khakis, and they looked cool, and they wanted what I had, and I was willing to go to any length to get it. I wanted to hang out with them, and I started doing that. I started hanging out with the dope dealers and the gangbangers on the corner around the street from my house, and they let me hold their guns for them. It was my first commitment, and I thought I was important, it was an important position to hold people's guns, and I didn't figure out until I was sober that they were probably on parole and couldn't hold their own guns, but that's the kind of stuff I started doing, staying out at night and not taking care of this family and not going to work. And my parents did an intervention on me and told me I have a problem with drugs. And I'm going to tell you, if you're new tonight, if you're in Alcoholics Anonymous and you were like me, I came to Alcoholics Anonymous a drug addict. I said, I am not an alcoholic. And they sent me to this place, and I told them I'm a drug addict, and they told me I couldn't drink. Well, how ridiculous is that? I'm a drug addict, and this is Alcoholics Anonymous. Of course I could drink. And they said, you know what, you can't drink. And they didn't argue with me. They said they wanted something about planting the seed, and whatever. I did Alcoholics Anonymous Lisa J's way, and I got drunk twice doing that. I came in Alcoholics Anonymous. I think it's stupid. They say their name every time they get up. What's wrong with these people? They talk about some steps. They want to know my business. I'm not telling them. I took my inventory, the one inventory I wrote in one of those, I wouldn't even call it a sobriety, and took it out in the back and burned it and called myself free. I'm free of it all, and I drank. I didn't do anything they told me to do. I didn't go to meetings. I didn't get a sponsor. I just did what I wanted to do. And I thought, they smoke a lot of cigarettes and drink a lot of coffee. What did they know? I did not respect Alcoholics Anonymous. And I tell you something, once I got back my stuff, once I got back my job, once I got back my husband, once I got back my kids, I got back my power, and I could drink. I don't know what they were thinking, but I could, and I did. I did it again. I got pregnant again, that baby wasn't a month and a half before I had blacked out and fell off the porch. And my sister was looking over me, terrified. And I just looked up at her and said, what's your problem? I'm laying out on the grass, and she had to stay there all night and take care of the baby. My story is a story of denial. I ran rampant through that little town in Arkansas. My husband at this time had joined the military. He was having his own problems, not sending money. Right now, my outside stuff's not working. My mom's terrified. She's a good old Southern Baptist woman, and everyone in the church knows her daughter's sneaking on the other side of the town at night, like no one knows it's me. And I heard this girl say that I drank with, that there was this hospital that I could go to where I wouldn't have to go to meetings like this. That was my primary purpose, no meetings, and that the food was really good. Like she said, I think I remember her saying it was catered by the Hilton, but that's ridiculous. What recovery home's catered by the Hilton? But in my mind, it was catered by the Hilton, and I didn't have to go to meetings like this. So I looked in the phone book in my days or whatever, and there was only one hospital in Chula Vista. It started with a C. I didn't even know if it was Chula Vista. It just started with a C. And I picked that one, and they said, are you suicidal? And of course I was, and I was afraid they weren't going to take me. I mean, I really was frightened that I wasn't going to get a chance to rest up, and they sent a cab for me, and I was able to, the manager of that place let me get a change of clothes where I could change one day and wash one day, and I went off to that hospital. They sent a cab for me, and I went there, I signed some papers, and I got in there, and they took the sharp objects away and told me to light my cigarette on the wall. And when I got in there, I said, okay, whatever, and I got to the first group, and the guy said, look at yourself, your life is unmatchable, you're in a mental institution. I thought, mental institution? And, here I am sitting in there with a degree in general psychology, and I just grabbed the lady next to me and said, is this a mental institution? And I must have grabbed her pretty hard because she said, calm down. And, I had signed myself in a mental institution. I had no idea how I got there with with a degree in psychology. I was just as baffled as, the inmates in there knew why they were there, but I had no idea where alcoholism had taken me. And, and they all, conferred with me and told me I was AMA, against medical advice, and that I couldn't run. I saw 2 guards, and I was making my getaway plan. I was kind of checking it out, how I can escape and hitchhike and do all this stuff. And, they showed me a little room, and they had a little window, and they said, you run, you go in there. And every now and then I see a little face peering out, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll stick around for a couple of days. And that I did. And I'm going to tell you that in that mental institution, somebody brought in a panel, and the message of Alcoholics Anonymous happened for me, because I went to a meeting that night, and I sat there, and they said something, or they read something that just sent chills all over me, like it does every time I tell it, and it saved my life. I thought maybe they know, but maybe they know something I don't know, and I haven't had a drink since. I went back to my room, and instead of grabbing the Reader's Digest, I grabbed the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started reading the stories in the back and identifying as an alcoholic, and it's completely changed my life. I had no idea as an alcoholic. I didn't even want to be sober when I went there. I just wanted to rest and try it a different way. And my life has been different. When I got sober, I had 10 warrants for my arrest for bad checks I had written in the 90s, and I was on the National Crime Computer. My dad works in corrections in Arkansas. He let me know that. I don't even know what the National Crime Computer prosecutor was, but I could be picked up in any state for these warrants and go to jail. I had 2 kids in one state, 1 kid in another state, and a husband in the brig in the military jail. And I was so desperate. And so that, you know what, I didn't ask how's it going to be better for me. I just did what you told me to do. I got a bus pass. I started sending money for my kids and start looking for work. And I centered my life around Alcoholics Anonymous because when I came into these meetings, I felt safe. That was the only time I felt safe. Me and my head would go back out, but I would go to 2, 3, 4, and one time up to 5 meetings a day. I just would sit in the meetings. And what happened to me is the language of the heart. My girlfriend Kenna says that the speaker gets to the podium and it's 30 minutes magic. And I'm here to tell you it's not 30 minutes magic. It's one day at a time, just a day after another day. You know, I just came and, you know, I finally got a little job. I kept my bus pass. Emmett went with me to get my first little car. And, you know, he went with me to get my second car, my brand new car, you know, and then I kept writing those kids cards. I didn't believe that was going to help. At 90 days of sobriety, I'm crying because I don't have my kids. Now, I'm crying because you don't see me with my kids and I'm a mother. I'm not crying because I want any kids at all. I'm crying because you don't see me with them and you know I should have them because that's what mothers do. Mothers take care of their kids. And he just told me, if you continue like that, you're going to get drunk. Well, that scared me enough. I just started taking the action, writing them. I had burned my mom out, you know, trying to keep open communication with the kids, and those cards worked wonders. I just couldn't believe it. After a while, they were writing me cards back. I didn't get my kids until I was 3 years sober. My 2 kids were with my mom, and 1 was with my mother-in-law, which I ended up getting a divorce. But I had to take her to court to get my baby back. She did not want to give me back my baby. She said, you're a bad mom to her, and I'm not giving her back to you. And I didn't snatch her. I felt that wasn't the right thing to do, so I ended up going to court for 1.5 years, and it was the most painful time that I could ever think of, because here I am sitting in court, and they're talking about me like I was a dog, and some of the things they were saying were true, and some of them weren't. But Alcoholics Anonymous told me to stay on my side of the street. They told me don't worry about them. They told me I couldn't blow up their house or cut their brake lines or nothing like that. But I had to do my part. They made me go to therapy with this family. And here's my ex-husband who's drinking, who just hid the whole time. And, you know, they told me that resentments are the #1 factor. They're a killer. Anger is going to kill you. Why don't you mind your own business? And I couldn't stand it, but I'm always, when I was new, I was afraid not to do what you told me to do. I'm pretty much the same today. You have time, you know what you're doing, you live a good life. I'm afraid not to do what you say. So I did it. And I'm going to tell you, by the grace of God, I have a good relationship with that family today. My kids do not have a relationship with their dad. He's gone. He's not communicating. But last weekend or so, I drove the kids down and they spent it with their grandmother and their grandfather. And they called me today and they asked me for stuff. And I'm going to tell you, when I knew that hatred I had for them and all that anger and resentment, even though I was taking the right actions, there's something said for taking the right actions had broke. And my mother-in-law had called and had told me her brother had died. And I knew her brother was an alcoholic. He had died from this disease, cirrhosis of the liver. And before I even knew what was going on, I asked her, is there anything I could do for you? And I knew the program had worked for me, regardless of what I thought, because that's what we do. One alcoholic helping another alcoholic, and I knew that her family had suffered because I know how I had suffered, and the people in AA had suffered. And we have a good relationship today. I have a good relationship with my mom. My mom, I got my kids back. Actually, it's been 4 years this month that I got my kids back, and my mom gave them back to me. And, you know that I got them back many times before and screwed up. I always wanted to do the right thing. And, you know, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but I never took the right actions at all. And when she came to see us, you know, I knew she was coming to check on us, to see what our lives were like. Well, I have a very structured life. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have meetings. I have commitments. Today I'm a school teacher. I teach middle school. We have a very active, busy life. And she came and she sat on the edge and she watched our life. And when she got back to Arkansas, she called me and she said, you have a good life and you're a good mom to those kids. You know, and that's a far cry from a woman that lived on the street where she couldn't even stand to look at me. You know, my kids are 11, 9, and 7. And when I got them back, I'm going to tell you, I didn't take to motherhood like a fish to water. I just, you know what, it was not my thing. You know, I cried and cried, oh, I want them back. And then I got them back. I'm like, oh, I got them back, you know. I'm just like, it has been really hard for me. I'm extremely selfish and self-centered. You know, they talk, you know, while I'm thinking. And, They talk during the good part of the music on the radio, and I just, you know what, I just had to learn, you know what, turn off the radio. I had to learn to put them first. I had to learn to pay attention to them. I remember when I first got them back, they were always hugging on me, and I just told my sponsor, I called her and I said, you know, they hug me too much. I said, you know, can we like limit the hugs per day? And I sound so ridiculous now, but it was bugging me that they were all over me. You know, I hadn't had people, you know, when I was hugged is when I came here, and I was still funny, like, you know, don't touch me. And you know what, they hugged me today. It's okay. I got over that, you know, and it has been like such a blessing. You know, I was unemployable when I got here with those 10 warrants, and I want to talk about the steps because I have worked the steps. And the amend step is, you know, those warrants. I knew I was going to go to jail. And after a little while, there's a man in our group, Vince Y., that took on my case at 6 months of sobriety because I was a mess. I had these 10 warrants. I had a degree. I'd never even applied for the degree. You know, there are procedures you take, but I never paid attention to any of it. And he just kind of took me and showed me what to do with my money, showed me how to look for a job, just showed me how to do things that I guess really normal people know how to do, and my life kind of took off from there. And I had to go back and take care of these warrants. I called my mom and said, you know, I'm coming back. She says, you're going to jail up to a year. And I said, you know, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I'd saved some of my little money, and I was going. And at a year of sobriety, this is what I was going to do. And she called me back and said, I'll pay it for you. Because at a year, she could already see what Alcoholics Anonymous had done for me. You know, 7 months of sobriety, Emmett had told me to call her and ask her for the money, and she went off on me. She just was like, she took my inventory and just, it was bad. And at a year, she already knew what AA had done for me, and she offered to pay that money. And I paid her that money back, and I didn't go to jail, and that was taken care of, you know. And my dad, my biological dad, is a good guy. I've talked to him. He's not a bum. He's not a loser. He runs a restaurant in Vegas. He told me his side of the story, and we don't talk a whole lot, but you know what? The line of communication is open. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous has given me every single solitary thing I have. And, you know, I always want to talk about what I'm working on today because, you know, it always sounds so good. Things are good. My life is good. It's excellent. But yet I have, you know, as Emmett says, life shows up. And for me to be able to sit still and let the waves of emotion like come over me, and for me not to move, are a miracle, because when those waves come, I want to take action. I want to take action based on anger, resentment, fear. I never want to take it any other time, but I want to take it during those times of emotion and get myself in trouble. And one of the things I've had to work on with my kids is my anger, because I'm an angry person. I mean, angry and fearful. And what happened was, one day I came in a house and I pushed my kid. I just pushed him out of the way. And I just thought, what are you doing? Like, you couldn't say, excuse me. Like you would say to any other person on the street, like you have to push him. And I started working 6 and 7 on my anger. And I don't know about you, but for me, I've had to come to believe and surrender each character defect as it's choked the crap out of me a time and time again. It hasn't come easy, and that's something that I pray every day and every night, you know, that I have to watch my anger and give my anger to God when it comes to these kids. I don't want to raise maniacs. I don't want to raise crazy people. I want them to be kind and loving people, and that they are. We were sitting in Pasadena today eating at a restaurant. We got ready to get up, and the lady grabbed me behind me and said, I just want to, you know, it's been a pleasure sitting next to you and your children, you know. And that's Alcoholics Anonymous. It's truly AA. You know, I've been able to go to graduations and soccer games and be the soccer mom. And, you know, from where I came from, it is truly incredible. You know, I don't want to tell these people, you know, who's serving your kid, but, you know, it's just, it's a blessing. It really is. You know, I'm a school teacher today. I teach middle school. I teach special education. And, you know, no one wants to teach them. I love them. I think they're fabulous. And, you know, I learn a lot because they're just like me. And I tell this story because it reminds me how I get in my sobriety. You know, I'm sitting here today. There's days where I don't want to come and I don't want to do anything. I'm nearly as sober as this man here, but I have to, you know, like Sharon Barker says, my feet do the walk and not my head. I just get up and go. And we went to the Children's Museum, and there's this little boy named Isaiah, And Isaiah was like, quite a bit of a kid. And Isaiah had been into the store there and tried to steal 3 times. He did not give up. He just kept going back, keep coming back. And he had gotten caught, and the assistant was dragging him on the arm. She was yelling and screaming through the place, like, hey, you're gonna. And I just said, what happened? And they said, he tried to steal 3 times. And I just looked down in his little face, and I just said, Isaiah, how sad it is you can't enjoy something good. And I don't want that to happen to me in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is something good, and as my friend Kenneth says, I hope that, AA never gets in the way of the life it gave me. I'm completely grateful for my life, and I want to thank you.